Welcome to Attuned for Wholeness with me, Lisa Pinney. Life is full of uncertainty, confusion, and heartache. It gets hard to manage at times. This show will combine your lived experience with self-awareness and prayer to help you navigate through those tough times. You know, those ones that keep you from living in a place of true harmony, fully attuned to your body, your soul, and your spirit. Attunement is this spiritual practice of getting emotionally honest and connecting with God so we can recover from daily life and our souls can go back to a place of rest. Together, we'll move away from the unhealthy ways of coping that temporarily alleviate the pressure, but ultimately leave us feeling more disconnected from our true selves. Attuned for Wholeness with me, Lisa Pinney, starts now. Okay, today I'm here with Lori Snyder, my good friend, and we're going to be talking about the ways we self-protect. So we're going to do it by revealing a little bit about ourselves, because I feel like when we share our stories, you understand a little bit better, because in sharing experiences, we connect and pieces of the puzzle connect. So welcome, Lori. I'm so glad you're back.
Thanks, Lisa. It's such an honor to be here. I just love you. So thank you.
I love you too. Okay, so Lori and I have a little bit of a history. We started out, I coached her, then she became a coach for my resiliency program, and she's killing it. I have to say that. But we also became really good friends. And in doing that, we often talk about the crazy things we do and what happens when we get triggered and what happens when we get confused. And so today we're going to just focus on self-protection. And Lori, do you want to go first?
You can go first.
All right. So I'll tell you guys a little bit about me. When I was younger, I didn't self-protect. I raged. I pushed people away. I fought. Like I physically fought people. And at the time I was probably about 96 pounds. So I don't know why I was doing that. Like pretty much anybody could beat me up, but I did it because I just had so much anger in me and it was leaking out somewhere. So every time I got threatened, I would self-protect. I would get angry and push people away. But then when I got older and I was working for some doctors, and doctors tend to be a little bit more dominating, I found myself shutting down, self-protecting, getting quiet, avoiding eye contact, which honestly, I did that when I was young, but I had this big long span of time that I didn't do that. I didn't get angry. I didn't flip out. And then I went to the other extreme and I kind of figured out that I personally would self-protect when I was around people that were more powerful than me. That's my daddy stuff coming out. So self-protection became something I was really aware of, and I didn't like it about myself. I was like, what is wrong with me? Why am I doing this? But I also knew at the same time, I did not want to fight with people and scream and yell because, that's not helpful. It's just not. And given my background of faith, I realized that it was an area that I needed to work on, whether I was self-protecting or flipping out. I needed to do some work around it. And all I can say is that's still a work in progress. And I think, honestly, I think that kind of stuff is I'll be working on the rest of my life. It's not once and done. Right. For the most part, you have these big chunks of time that you do it. You appropriately have conversations. And then there's these other times that you're like, yeah, no, I want to get out of the room. I want to get away from you. And then there's other times when like you feel strongly about something and you're ready to put your stake in the ground on an issue. I think that's humanity. The grace in it is that we have a God that we can go to and say, help.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have learned the art of making amends when necessary,
Mhm.
and that helps to alleviate the guilt,
Good.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
Well,
tell me, wh-
I
go
love
ahead.
your story, and mine is like completely opposite. I grew up. I was not a person of faith, and I did not grow up in a household that was a believer, really, and good family. But I grew up as a very performance-driven person. I was a doer, and I was the youngest, and I grew up in the
Mhm.
country on a farm, so there was a lot of performance, a lot of work to be done anyway. But when I was 6, I went and spent the night with a neighbor, and her brother molested me.
Mm.
And my mom was not emotionally available to process. She grew up in a household where her parents constantly fought. So she went to the opposite side where we didn't even talk about our emotions. You
Mhm.
just put it under the rug and you just move on. And you're strong, you can get over this. So I became a fixer. But when that would repeatedly
Mhm.
happen, I would go spend the night with girlfriends when I was young, and then their brothers would molest me. And I just didn't know what to do with that. So all of that shame and guilt and rejection and feeling like I have to perform in order to be seen or heard or acknowledged or really valued, that my value wasn't in the physical body, it was in what I achieved. I was a great student, I was an athlete, I was an award-winning athlete. Then I went on to be an award-winning sales representative. So by achieving, I felt like I was in control of my life. And in that, I self-protected, meaning I was guarded. I didn't know until I became a believer, Proverbs 4:23, where it says, guard your heart above all else, because out of it flow the issues of life. I had a lot
Mhm.
of issues. I was guarded, but I did not know how to guard my heart. I did not know how to communicate my emotions. And I had those big emotions: shame, obviously, the
Mhm.
fear. I was driven by fear. So what I was is very shy. I could not look people in the eye.
Mm.
I would retract. If we were in a group of people, I did not speak. One on one, I was okay. Still no eye contact, but I shrunk back. And because I was the youngest and had older brothers and grew up with all boys, I was an athlete, so that way I could at least hold my own, but I did not fight. But what I did was become passive aggressive because I
Yep.
did not know how to express my
Mhm.
anger, my hurt, my broken heart. I would then use words as daggers. I would break
Mm.
people down with their word or with my words, or shame them
Well, let
verbally.
me ask you a question. Can you
Yeah.
still do that? Like, this is a vulnerable moment I'm going to pull out of you. Can you still break people down with your words?
I'm aware of it now, and
Yeah.
as you know, you've taught us how to be self-aware. I catch myself now doing it, or starting to at least thought have those thoughts. I was trying to control everything except for my
Mm.
thoughts. I didn't know how to catch that thought and go, wait a minute, that's a lie. I'm telling myself that's a wrong belief. That's an unhealthy way of coping. But I will still, I will say vulnerably, yeah, the other day I was frustrated with my 20-year-old son, and I just the frustration behind it came out in a not a very loving way. It wasn't hurtful. It wasn't degrading him or shameful, but it was not with a tone that was, let's have a conversation. It was more of
Mhm.
the bam and this and this and this because
Yeah,
it had
that's what
been
I'm
pent up.
saying.
Yes.
That's what I'm
So,
saying. For the rest of our life, these things are going to pop up from time to time. They're just not going to dictate every movement we make.
right. And it didn't cause separate. I mean, I was able to talk to my son through it, and we forgave each other, and then we were good. And we still talk about, hey, the other day I apologize, here's where I was at, but here's how I need to be able to be open with you. So it's that maturing process that I think we continue to grow in. How can we become better version of ourselves? How can we be better at relationships to present ourselves in a way that is authentic, but yet loving and kind and respectful of the other person?
Here's what I know about self-protection in general and specifically. You'll only protect when you feel threatened.
Mm-hmm.
You'll stand up or you'll rage when you feel powerful enough, like you'll overtake that person, overcome whatever they're doing to make them bend to your will.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of like that's what my dad did, He was this big, strong, powerful, he had a powerful voice. He had a powerful presence. He could be equally charismatic, but at the same time, when he was mad, man, ooh, watch out. And so here I'm a little girl, right? So I learned to, but then it would come out on my friends and my sister. And oh, it used to come out on my sister a lot. No lie. I would constantly beat on her and laugh about it. So all of those emotions have to go somewhere. They went on my sister, who was younger and weaker than me.
Yeah. 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 And I was shy because I would even have friends say, if you don't do this, I won't want to be your friend anymore. And I grew up in the country and was always alone and isolated.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a mom who, again, was a doer. She would say, you need to do this, you need to do that. It was always a fix or always a performance. And that was just the mindset growing up that I carried into. And I will say, when I did become a believer as an adult, and then now trying to fit into the church regime, so to speak, or mindset, then that became even more stuffing, because the thought is, if I really share my struggles and what's happening now in my marriage and what we're going through,
Right.
they will even question, how can you even be saved? How can you have those thoughts? You have the mind of Christ. I mean, they would spiritualize everything. And I was clueless. So then it shut me down even more. Like, I don't even have permission to feel now
So
because
this
I'm not in
specifically,
faith.
sorry,
No,
go
you're
ahead.
good.
This specifically relates to an older generation. Those of us that heard a lot of that stuff in the 90s.
Yeah.
I wonder how a younger generation does that, or if they're more sensitive to each other because they're more informed. And every generation seems to do something different than the previous one.
Yeah. I would 100% agree. And especially with having 20-year-olds, I have twin 20-year-olds, that because they went through COVID, there's so much now awareness of their mental health,
Mm-hmm.
trauma. Even think about, in the 90s, I didn't even know what trauma was unless it was something like real extreme. So I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
say, oh, I had a lot of trauma. And then I was just talking to a friend of mine last week, and we were recounting kind of my history, health history too, because it affected my body and affected my health and
They can mirror
autoimmune.
each other.
And what is it? Like 80% of women deal with autoimmune, or autoimmune is more with women than men, because we don't know how to do with this. We self-protect, we stuff, or we try to fix. So,
And we're
but
culturalized to
yeah,
be nice.
yeah. And I just recognize, oh my goodness, I have had a lot of trauma in a lot of different areas that
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even have an awareness of. So I think you're spot on that it's a generational thing. And it's now the internet, we didn't have that for us growing up. So it's information overload almost.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But how do we process it? And that's where you were so great in helping me of, let's process this. And then also too, the fact that you said we become good friends. I love that you will call me out. And just what I've been walking through the last few weeks, going through menopause. Oh my goodness, crazy cycle. And you've been so great just to say, hey, I've noticed this. You might want to think about this. I'm seeing this old pattern. Let's talk about it. And that has
That's
been
what we
gift.
do. I mean, we will find ourselves for the rest of our life gravitating to an old pattern from time to time. And that's something that when I went for counseling, I think it was the second time I saw my counselor. She told me that, and I was like, "Oh, that makes so much sense." And it became key. I'd be like, "Oh wait, I'm going back to that old coping strategy." Or hiding, or whatever it was.
Right.
And sometimes it was just sometimes it was just like, I'm going shopping. And sometimes I say to God, hey, God, I know I'm shopping for all the wrong reasons, but I'll get back to you because I'm going to go shopping right now.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So let's talk about, one thing is self-awareness is the starting point, but that doesn't solve anything. We can recognize, oh, I have a pattern. I want to cope this way. For me, I would isolate because that's where I felt comfortable. It's what I knew. And I would just binge watch movies just to escape my life, so to speak. But how do we press through that then? So how do we not self-protect? How do we guard our heart and process that so then we can mature and grow and have healthy relationships?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. It takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
So it's self-awareness, pausing, maybe talking to a good friend, maybe privately, between you and God, but it takes a lot of courage to do something different. And here's the thing, when we allow God into that picture, even the parts we don't understand, he sort of comes along with this piece of the puzzle that we never recognized. And we go, oh, and in fact, it just happened with a friend the other day. She was like, oh my God, I just realized. And that's like, to me, that is God and Holy Spirit being the counselor,
Yeah.
being the wise guide, being that counselor that we truly need. Because as human beings, nobody has all the answers, but nobody knows us like Jesus does either. And so when he comes along with this piece of the puzzle and it fits, then you're like, okay, I know how to move forward.
Yeah. And that's is so great because he does speak to us so often through other people, like through you. You've confirmed so many different things that I was going on in my head that I didn't even articulate. And then you would share something with me. But one of the things that I found when you said takes courage, the thought that I had before I really entered into and took the risk to be vulnerable, I had this thought that if I face the pain of my past, it's going to hurt worse than when it actually happened. There were so many lies that I had, or what is God going to reveal to me? I was afraid of what he might show me. But that's when it's like, no, you shut the light, you turn the light on to expel darkness. It's warm and it's freeing. It doesn't bring shame. And so shame will keep you silent and isolated and
And then there's
separate.
also the religious speak that will keep you stuck if you're not careful. I have really gravitated away from a lot of that stuff just because when I'm talking to somebody, I want to have a conversation with them that's not going to make them walk away and feel just as stuck as they were before or worse. I want them to walk away and go, man, I'm glad I got that off my chest.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you on that because one of the frustrations I would get is someone would just say, well, I'll pray for you. Or you just pray about it. And it wasn't really like it. Yes. And you know me, I would rationalize everything because that felt comforting to me because I'm feeling like I'm fixing something if I'm rationalizing, but my rational mind is not in tune with my heart.
Or what you really need.
Or
So let me tell
desire.
you this crazy story. I went to go see this pastor's wife. I was probably about 30, 35 years old. I was young. And I knew her because we went to the same school together, though she was a few years older than me. And I will never forget this. She was eating an egg sandwich while we were talking, right? And she said, so how are you? And I went, if one more person tells me just pray about it, I think I'm going to punch him in the face. Her eyes, here she has this sandwich up to her face and she goes, and I realized at that second, she was actually like, oh my God, I know that girl from when she was raging out all over the place. And she wasn't real sure that I wasn't serious. But,
Yeah.
it was a figure of speech.
Right.
It just was a figure of speech. But I too, like you, I was just super tired of people saying, I'll pray for you, or have you prayed about it? Lord Jesus, why do I have to pray about something before I talk and can get my head on straight? I'm a verbal processor.
Right. Me
So
too.
if you hold space for me and let
Yeah.
me talk,
Yeah.
I get things become clear. And then when I sit down on my back porch with the birds and a cup of coffee, hanging out with Jesus, I'm like, okay, Jesus, let's talk about this now.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
So I don't understand this whole order thing that you have to go to Jesus first. I think that's true for some people. It's not true for everyone. And we've made this like an unwritten rule that that's how we have to do it. And yeah, so I'm not about that.
Yeah. And it's not a formula. Everyone wants the formula. If I do this, I get that result. Well, life is not like that. You can be doing everything right, but other people have choices that influence and affect your life that you don't have control over. So, what I loved someone like yourself, you speak the truth in love, but you also hold that space, because what happens when we start sharing our story with a safe person, a safe environment, we start recreating new neural pathways to our
Right?
brain to actually have brain health, to
Yep.
create right healthy environments. But recognizing, what does your heart really need?
Mhm.
What am I really wanting in this? Is it to feel safe and secure, to be valued and worth, and to be loved and feel that connection, right? And especially that's where I realized I was looking for a heart connection with someone else, but I couldn't really get that because I was not connected to my own heart.
Okay, so one more thing then. That's why women have these ongoing relationships, one night stands, because they're looking for love, but
Yeah.
they give their body in hopes of getting love in return. And a guy's going to tell you, I love you, baby, in hopes of getting your body. So it's like this. Come on, women, we got to be smarter than that.
Yeah.
But it goes back to what you're saying, need drives behavior. We're going to have those needs met one way or the other, either in healthy relationships or unhealthy relationships. And sometimes that unhealthy relationship is with the refrigerator.
Yeah, the self-soothing. But that's where once you become empowered, when you are aware, you recognize, but then you can also look at, oh, I'm not doing that anymore.
Right?
And I'm at a new season. I might slip back and go, oh, okay. But I do it with self-love and care. Instead of beating myself up, I look at, what does my heart need? Oh, okay. Then I either talk to a friend or I connect with Jesus to say, Jesus, you fill it. And then I do this exchange with him. I give you this hurt and pain. Jesus, what do you want to give me in exchange? And then hear from him. And so that's what you've taught me so well. Thank you.
I stumbled on that and I've used it for years now, but I stumbled on that. Not exactly sure how I got there, but it works. I think adding the imagery to our words when we're praying makes it more powerful and dynamic.
I agree. I agree.
And considering that most people are 72% of us are visual people, why wouldn't we add imagery to our prayer?
Yes. And hope is tied to imagination. And we have to start with hope before we'll have faith.
I didn't realize hope was tied to imagination. That's interesting,
It
but it
is.
makes sense
Yep.
because when I'm at my most creative, I'm also most hopeful.
Yep. Yep.
So that's pretty cool. Okay, so we're going to end it for today. And Lori, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you.
Sure. My website is loriksnyder.com. I have teachings and resources there. I also have a podcast called Created to Thrive Podcast.
Okay. And I'm going to give you a quick update. Hopefully, this month, the app Get Attuned is going to be out, and you'll be able to take care of your own emotions privately in your home.
Awesome.
Thanks for tuning in to Attuned for Wholeness. I hope you got the tune up you needed today. Keep tuning in on the first and third Wednesday of every month at 4:30 Eastern Standard Time and 3:30 Central Time on ttm.com for more conversations around caring for our emotional health and spiritual well-being. I'd like to invite you to consider becoming a resiliency coach to develop the skills that will help others heal and bounce back quicker from negative events. Or maybe you're someone who's looking for a holistic and spiritual path to move through anxiety and unresolved trauma. For both of these resources, visit my website at www.wholenessandpractice.com. And thank you for listening to Attuned for Wholeness on Transformation Talk Radio.